Just getting started. Just getting started. I guess I don't have my microphone. Just getting started. Random time to come on. How are you guys doing today? I'm just jumping on. Just now. Just now. Oh, New Year's Day. New Year's Day. I know, right? I technically, I don't believe that this is the new year. And so, kind of ignoring it. I didn't do anything. Big Shark, I probably wouldn't have done anything anyway. Um, but I'm going to be celebrating it in spring. In fact, I'm going to celebrate it on April 1st, which is historically April Fool's Day. Also believed to be the true birthday of Jesus, Yeshua. April Fool's Day. Who knows though? But that's when I'll celebrate the new year. We're supposed to, and I know this is weird, but like we are supposed to kind of emulate the seasons and our patterns and our body and our rest and everything. The night, the day, the seasons, winter, spring, summer, fall. Kind of shows you how your energy should go. We are a part of the ecosystem. But yeah, give it a few minutes here. I don't know if my mod's in yet. Did everybody have a good one though? At least I know I did see what happened though in Louisiana. So I'm not being obtuse to that. But like I said, and I have been saying, unfortunately, it's going to get very turbulent. And man, my heart goes out to anyone who was affected by that. I don't, and I'm not alone on this. I know, I know. But I've spent some time and kind of in solitude, and for me, I am so exhausted in so many ways from anytime you would want to open an app or open your phone, there is another tragedy. Like, we're not talking about just bad things happening. We're talking about tragedies. And what it does to us, aside from just, I mean, no matter how far away, I'm in Ohio, okay, no matter how far away you are, regardless of the demographic, if it was a target demographic, it doesn't matter. It incites fear and anger and hopelessness because it's designed to do that too. And I am not going to go into this conspiracy. I am not a person that's like, it's all fake, it's all whatever. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that regardless, it is exhausting to open your phone and see a tragedy every day. And that is something we as Americans have normalized. As if our bodies and our minds are any more resilient to suffering and pain than anyone else in any other country, you know? Like, in fact, we have normalized so much more than other countries. And I can't, I've told so many Americans to visit other places outside of the US, anywhere, go to Europe. Now, here's the thing. I know that most of us don't have the money. Most people don't have money, nor the vacation time. And if they do, they don't really have the desire to go out of the country, you know. But if you have friends from other countries, or you do visit other places and you speak to them as an American and they feel comfortable enough to ask you questions, which they always want to, by the way, the second they get a chance, they always want to. They have a hard time believing how bad it is, because what they hear is bad. But when you tell them, like our healthcare system, they know it's bad, but they don't know how bad. When you go to tell them, I paid a few $1,000s for an ambulance ride, like they literally, they have a hard time believing you. And it's not because they think you're lying. It's because it's just like, what? You know, which we're all like, what? But aside from that, what I want to say is, in this turbulence, and this probably the most important thing I'm going to say, in this year, I wish I could say that there won't be more. Okay. I can't say that. It's got a design to it. Just remember that. The most important thing I'm going to say, two things. Biggest thing is that we cannot turn on each other. That is the biggest thing I'm going to say. Hey, Cosmo. We can't turn on each other. And I know that, look, I'm going to say this. I know there was a lot of work to get us to we're already half there, you know? We cannot turn on each other because that is precisely the way these instances are angled, is to divide us, to get us to hate one another, to get us to turn on each other. Hey, Carrie. So for those that understand that there is something greater afoot, that there is something maybe driving this, you can see the plan, and you can see what the end goal for them is if you pan out just a little. Everything has a narrative. Everything. A narrative that they're going to sell to get us afraid, to get us in fear. And the biggest thing that we need to remember is we cannot be in fear. We can't. We can't live our lives that way. Additionally, additionally, aside from not being able to, it not being a good idea to live in fear, if all this has a plan and a structure, okay, let's say that it goes. Now, I'm going to be very clear with you guys. This is beyond American politics. Hey, Abby. This is well beyond American politics. The thing that some people need to remember is this is cosmic. Okay, there is cosmic intervention. Okay, which I share with people. This should lay out the gravity when cosmic intervention is happening. And for anyone that is wondering, these others that are coming in that are intervening are very aware of how jarring that is going to be for a lot of people. And they don't want to frighten anyone. Hence why they've not intervened before. They don't want to scare you. I mean, that's the biggest thing. They don't want to. But it's gotten so bad, and there's a lot going on behind the curtain, that they are intervening. So, America, if we were to imagine that there is something cosmic, so there is something beyond us, which would almost, this is a very difficult part of being awake in this time in the world, is when you are awake, and I'm going to be very clear, when people use that term, I'm very careful to realign it. Do not allow it to be used and lumped in like the way they use the word woke, where people are so mad about things being woke, and yet barely anyone who complains about that word knows what it actually means. Okay. They just know it's a bad word. But being awake, okay, when you are a person who is awake, or you're aware that you're waking up, or maybe you're not, okay, maybe you're not quite aware that that's happening yet. You just feel very different. This world feels about as foreign as it can, and you feel a change happening in you. When you wake up and you start to, and I talk about downloads, people talk about downloads, and I talk about how they come in. So a download is literally, again, imagine your brain as a motherboard, okay? And somebody put a file in, but it's a big file, okay? And they put a few in, all right? It's a big file. And so too much of that at once might crash the motherboard a little bit. And that would be psychosis for us, okay? That would be extreme confusion about what's real and what's not. And that does happen to people. Is it starts to give it to you in chapters and pieces. But you don't have as much of a control, definitely not at first, at how those chapters come in. So when those chapters come in, again, I've used this analogy before, like you'll get chapter 6, then 12, then 3, and it's this jigsaw that you're trying to put together. So when I didn't realize what I was getting was downloads when that was happening. I did not know. I mean, but it was wild. I've never thought like this. I had never thought like this. But all the while, I was also, and I know I'm not alone, looking at the world, going like, "What in the hell is happening? Like, why is this? What are we doing?" Like, because the height of my awakening was during COVID, and I was looking around like, and the world stopped. For a lot of us, it stopped. And when the world stopped, we stopped. And for those of us that were waking up, I was waking up before, long before that. Because again, the more that you wake up, the longer you look back and go, I was actually waking up a long time ago. Yeah, Joy, I actually learned, it made me feel a lot better. There's a few little silver linings that we get. And one of them for me was apparently that was a big one for a lot of people. Um, which I wish I would have known y'all when it was happening. I wish I knew someone because nobody knew. I went to every metaphysical reader, every psychic, because I wanted to know what was happening with me. I knew it wasn't something, I was a very science based person my entire life. Okay. If it couldn't be proven, explained, like it just, I'm not alone in that way. So, and that kept me objective because I'm a very objective person. So I stayed to the facts. I stayed out of my feelings because you get a clearer picture. When I had to realize there were things I couldn't explain, science didn't explain, nothing explained in the constructs of our reality, then you start to be like, what is happening? What am I? And that happens when you get a moment to stop. Now, for me, COVID was a big one. I was a business owner, and if anybody owns a small business, doesn't matter what it is, you don't stop working. Your work hours are nonstop. Okay. And so when I had to slow down and I had to stop, these visions came in like a floodgate. And I was also told that in 2024, there would be another big one. Now that we are in 2025, we are going to have a lot of people, a lot, that are not going to know what's happening to them. They're going to, they're going to feel like we felt. The positive for those of us that woke up earlier and what we're kind of meant to do, if you are a person that woke up before this moment or and are any bit aware that that happened to you, there are going to be a lot of very scared people here soon because they are going to start to realize is if we all remember when we first woke up, you gaslight yourself on what it is because you don't know. I didn't. I thought I had PTSD and I was losing my mind. I got into therapy like any person would do. I was like, this I had a really rough year, a lot of things are going on. I think I had PTSD. Got into therapy. Was in therapy for 2 years every week to find out that I was not insane. But it was helpful to have a person to talk with because I felt this desire to heal my trauma. And I know that's not like I'm going to say it straight up. Like that is something that we feel when you wake up. If you don't know if you're waking up, have you had a strong urge to heal yourself in some way, in a way that is much deeper than you've ever done before? Even things you thought you already did, and you're like, "No, I didn't quite." Are you looking around the world and wondering what the hell? Now that's if you just have a if you have a brain in your head, you're looking at the world going, "What the hell?" But it becomes so foreign. So foreign. And yeah, I'm happy for that. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to be going through what a lot of us went through during that time. And it's going to scare them like it scared us. Now, some of us, it scared a lot more. I was in Texas, so it scared me a lot more. I didn't have a lot of people who were familiar with this stuff. So I sought them out, and no one had an answer for me. All the while, I'm still in therapy. But where I landed with it was I ended up just accepting that there was something different about me, and I didn't know what it was. I'm very familiar with Jesus. He actually came to me in visions during my awakening. I have quite a bit to say about him. So we're good. Very familiar with him. He had quite a bit to say to me, too. Yeah. I was not a Christian, nor do I identify as a Christian. I want to put this out there. Now, I didn't have religious trauma or nothing. I'm going to be very honest. I didn't. Okay. I was told the true story. Now, some people will disagree with it. A lot of people. But what I saw is a far grander tale, a far grander legacy than what most people got. So I actually spend my Sundays talking about that, just so we know. Hey, Mayor. So one of the reasons he was one of the first visitations I got. And one of the reasons I think it happened was because one of the biggest things that plagues us as a society is the indoctrination that comes with a sacred religion and the way that it gets used against us. So it basically is a figurehead of something that can't be validated or disproven, that is telling you what to do and sometimes going against your conscience, your feelings, your intuition. And that was precisely the opposite of what Yeshua taught. Okay. He went up against the Roman Empire. That was what they did. You do this no matter what. So I think it's important to note that Yeshua was a divine soul. I also think it's even more important to understand I say this, I'm going to say this. Grief, that's a big thing that we suffer from here, grief. If one important thing I thought of when I lost my grandmother just recently, I had this moment where I started to feel guilty in my grief, because we do that. And I imagined how she would have wanted me to grieve. And I saw her little finger telling me, like, don't you dare put yourself through hell and misery over me. The woman devoted her whole life to making people happy. So I thought, oh my God, I don't want to be the cause of anyone's devastation, anyone that loves me. I told everyone in my life, I said, if you love me, you're in my life. There's rules. If I leave, you can be a little sad, but you're not allowed to be devastated. No, I'm not going to be your downfall, because I did that. I did that with other things. And the visions that I got of Yeshua, unexpected, and I did not know who it was, is a part of why I feel so compelled to correct the narrative when it gets thrown up and misconstrued, is because people are grieving him in a message that is very incorrect from what he wanted it to be. And he wasn't the only one, by the way. He would have likely been furious that his wife, Mary of Magdalene, was not included to the caliber that she contributed in his journey. His message was very different. So I am going to honor that with his life and grieve in the way that I saw he would want to be grieved, which would be to be understood. So here I am, not a beef with Christians, honoring him as a divine soul against people who will tell me all the things, but I don't need to know that person. I think a lot of other people do. I think a lot of people worshiping in his name should. They'd be better for it. Moving on from that, though. Jesus, see, this is the thing about a savior. Okay. He would never have said that he wanted a savior. This does tie into everything, by the way, because almost everything that we suffer from is because we've been lied to. This is kind of what I was going to talk about. We've been lied to. Yeshua wanted leaders, not followers. And this world has taught us to seek a savior. And when we seek a savior, then we think thoughts and prayers are good enough, right? Don't we? That's what we've been doing. Thoughts and prayers. And that's worked out so well. Because when we give thoughts and prayers, we give our power, our accountability to somebody else. They got it. We don't have to do anything, because we did. We gave thoughts and prayers. Now, while your thoughts and your prayers are very impactful, we have free will here on earth. It is important that not only do we don't just speak the words and give them to someone else, we walk in the footsteps. So if to anyone, and I'll say this lovingly, that would believe him to be the savior of the world, simply walk in his footsteps. He didn't want anyone to think he was so different. It's part of his story. He never hid what he was. He was a poor carpenter. He didn't want people to think The reason people thought he was a god was because of what he could do. He corrected that quite a bit. He would say, I am the Son of God as you are the Son of God and the daughter of God. He knew that God is inside of us. God's inside of us. Anything alive has a piece of it. And the indoctrination that we have been through, religion has played into it, and every facet all over the world, to get us to hand our power over to something else, something that was greater than us, because we are groveling sinners, defective. We need to beg for forgiveness and pray for someone to make it better, because we are just simply powerless humans, flawed in every way. Now, while I will say that we're flawed, we're not powerless. But look at what it's got us to not do. It's got us to normalize things and give thoughts and prayers to things that we should be taking action on. It's got us to imagine ourselves as helpless, powerless, needing somebody, a middleman, so to speak to God. We can't do it ourselves because we're too small. God wouldn't look at us. God's not paying attention to you. God is inside of you, my love. God is in everything you see. Everything you see on this earth. So stop looking up to the sky to define the undefinable and look around you. God is surrounding you all the time. And every person you meet, and every blade of grass you walk upon, and every tree that you might choose to hug. God. If we thought, though, that God was in everything alive, how would we treat this world and each other? If the indoctrination was God is in every person and in everything alive, what world would we live in? What world would we live in? And Teresa, I won't, if anything that makes you a better person, I respect all religions. I'll say that right away. I never mean to offend anyone. But I am going to say, you did use the word radically born again. Radically. A God is inside of everything that's alive. God's inside of you, Teresa. God is inside everyone in this chat, everyone in this world. God is neither a he or she. God is an energy of creation. Yeshua understood this, spoke about it quite frankly. Now, if we imagine that we had God inside of us, a part of God, and everyone around us, not only would we treat, and I agree with you, Tracy, we would treat everybody differently. We would treat this earth differently, wouldn't we? If we believed that God was in everything alive, the trees, the grass, the water, a sentient being, or the memory, the contribution water makes to us and life is invaluable and is very misunderstood. Water carries memory. I have been saying this, anyone can tell you, I have been telling people, hydrate, water carries memory. So we wouldn't pollute it now, would we? We wouldn't destroy this earth, nor would we destroy each other, because we would be destroying God. So if we viewed it that way, would we want to be a contributor in the destruction of God? God is love. I 100% believe that. I think that I agree. I think if any religion has made you a better person, kinder to people, then it's good. I'm not going to say anything about anyone's religion. See, I'm a little bit different than a lot of other people. I don't tell people they're wrong. I don't tell people that they're going to go anywhere bad. One thing that was shared with me is that there is no hell. There is no hell. Now that made me feel a lot better Sadly, I know that there's some people that enjoy that they're being a hell and they won't go to it. They believe. If we, and I'm not saying you, but there are people who like that thought because it gives them a feeling of superiority. It gives them a feeling that I am loved more by this entity than this person. And somehow they don't see that it's a wound inside of them needing that love to be stronger for them than it is someone else. I am very content knowing that everyone is equal, equally loved, and equally a light of God. Your conscience, which is there for a reason, no religion would infringe upon it. Sorry, wrong word. No religion would infringe upon it. No religion would make you go against something you knew, you felt in your gut was wrong. That's universal law. If you feel it's wrong, it's wrong. And that's not because you were told it's wrong. It's because it feels wrong. If someone's harmed, if a group of people is being harmed or targeted, or cruel things are being said to them in the name of any religion, doesn't matter, and you thought this is really cruel and unkind, doesn't feel right. But somebody came and said, oh, no, it is. It is right. It's very right. Ignore that little voice that was given to you for no particular reason at all and listen to mine. Harm, condemn, colonize, do whatever you want. Somebody undefinable, something undefinable, says it's okay. Trust me. And that's what we've done. We haven't felt God. We have lost God. When people say that a lot about this country. We're missing God. Thank you, Muffy. I agree. I agree with them. I don't think we'll agree on hows and whys, because I don't think that forcing it down people's religion, because God is meant to, in their schools, because God's meant to be felt. God is meant to be felt and understood and experienced, not taught, not forced, not scared into someone. That's not God. That's man. That's human beings right there. That's how they operate, not God. So any religion that teaches that there is one demographic that is lesser than, and they all do, by the way, they all do. Doesn't matter which one. All Abrahamic religions do. If anyone is being told that this demographic or this gender is less, God doesn't see it that way. Humans do, or they want to. If God said, this land is for you, God doesn't assign ownership to any land to anybody. God is all around us in the land. God is all inside all of us. There's no assignment. We're meant to be peaceful amongst one another, help and enjoy seeing one another thrive. If religion is forced into schools, which one will we use? In the United States, I think you know very well which one we would use. I mean this lovingly. Thank you, Abby. That's a part of it, is, and I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of all the things that were done to convert. Please look into it. If you're on the fence, if you're unaware. But what I wanted to share is I told you guys, I told my followers a couple weeks ago that the channel, I call it the channel. One of the things that happened when I was waking up that scared me was, along with many other things, there was an aspect of me that was different, that couldn't be explained medically, and even my therapist couldn't explain it. A gift, so to speak, that some might think, oh, that'd be so cool. It doesn't feel cool. Hi, Heather. It doesn't feel cool when it happens and you're not expecting it. It doesn't feel cool when the whole world's burning and you don't know what's what, and you know things you shouldn't. It feels scary. You start to get visions. You don't know what they are. Okay, now this happens with people. I tell people you'll start to get these little visions and they'll feel like intrusive thoughts. Now, sometimes they are. Okay. I've told everyone to get a journal because you may be getting chapter 6, or chapter 14, chapter 8. Write it down. Because I inherently knew to start journaling it. After a handful of things that I saw played out, I started journaling everything I ever thought. I filled journals. Oh my God, I'm writing a book because I have filled journals of things. Some of it didn't make any sense. Some of it seemed very random. So that channel, which is the same one that I got these visions, the ones that I saw my ancestors. I saw Yeshua. I saw a lot of things that I don't talk about. A lot of things. Not all were good. Not all were bad, but not all were good. And recently, about a couple weeks ago, I've told you guys the channel got stronger. And this happens when you wake up. Some people call them upgrades, downloads. I think they're actually a collective of understanding in the motherboard. So if this information was given to you, imagine your brain uploading an entire series of audiobooks. And it was going to conflict with your reality, the constructs of the reality in which you found yourself, everything you knew, everything you were taught. They wouldn't want you. What would happen if that entire series just got uploaded? It would scare you. I mean, literally, even getting pieces does. So you start to decipher these codes. And I've talked to people, that's what it is. It's a code about the importance of the reason that you feel the drive to heal the parts of you that you maybe thought had healed is because that helps the neurosynapses in your brain to fire without misfires, helps you to decipher the code better. Additionally, it helps you to know that you are not contributing accidentally your story and pain to the information that you're getting, which is another thing that is very difficult to understand. It took me a while to get that. Okay. I ignored a lot. There were a few things that I really thought there's no way. So when you start to get messages and you start to get the ones that just do not make sense and you're like, there's no way, you might find yourself gaslighting yourself and going, okay, maybe I think this because XYZ, and maybe, it doesn't matter. So when you do this healing, when you do this shadow work and you do get a little bit more certain of this, then you start to understand that these things that you were shown have nothing to do with your personal struggle, trauma, experiences. They are just what it is. And that channel got stronger for me, which means I was deciphering a lot more of the code. Okay. The tap. And it feels a little rattly. Okay. Like it upticks your vibration, which means the neurosynapses in your brain is going a little fast. Even though you don't feel, sometimes you'll feel rattly, but you won't feel anxious. Sometimes you do feel anxious. Or you'll have a bout of being anxious, but you feel like you're rattling all around. That's because the uptick in the electricity is happening in the brain. Now, this is triggered by upticks in, look at the Schumann resonance. Now, they'll say solar flares because science explains everything. Science has an explanation for just about everything, right? Our magic, I shared that me and my friend talked about this. Our magic as human beings has been explained by science. So nothing you do can't have an explanation. It's all scientific, It's all explained, right? So that you don't ever feel like you did anything, and that if you are having a thought, it's you psychologically. Okay. Medical field like to do that too. So when you start getting to a point where these visions and this uptick in the electricity happens, it helps that firing in the brain, the neurosynapses. It starts deciphering more code. So we all felt this. I'm not the only one that felt this. The Schumann resonance, when I didn't notice, I have not been following, the Schumann resonance went off the charts during this. Have you guys paid any attention? Do we know what the Schumann resonance is? I'll explain it really quick for people who don't. The Schumann resonance, sorry, is essentially a heartbeat for Earth. Okay, it is an electronic pulse that goes out to the ionosphere and kind of. I always tell people, imagine if you threw a tennis ball and you bounced it and hit a wall and you got it back. Bounced it, hit the wall, come back. That is what the Schumann resonance is. Okay, and it has been pretty steady for since we've been tracking it, and it has gone off the charts for about 2 years now. Off the charts. I think in May was the first time it hit its big spike. May, this upcoming May will be 2 years. Bounce, and then it felt like somebody was going. That's what the machines show. So when that first happened, because they have a live feed, NASA does. People like to follow it. So when that happened in May, and it spiked, and all these people who follow the Schumann resonance were like, "Oh my God, it's never been like this." NASA took the live feed down, and then came back and said it was a glitch, and then came back and said it was hacked by a 15-year-old kid, right? And then they returned the live feed back up. But there are other trackers for the Schumann resonance, a little bit, and it's kept spiking. So if you don't pay attention to it, when you feel that rattly, when you feel that vibration that in your brain and your body, Google or look up a live feed of the Schumann resonance and see where it's at. Because that uptick in electricity, we are electricity, we have electricity in our body. The uptick in electricity would help fire off the neurosynapses that would decipher the code, which would essentially lodge in our subconscious. Our subconscious is our driver. So if this code is lodging in our subconscious, then when it starts to decipher, it starts to come like a memory. It starts to feel like a memory. Or knowledge you just already knew. Now, this is a weird thing. It's not like, oh my God, I've learned something new. It's oh yeah. Why does it feel like a memory? There's a lot of reasons why it feels like a memory. But one of those is because it stores in your subconscious. So that you can go about your normal day-to-day best you can, feeling rattly. And that code is being deciphered in your subconscious. This also contributes to why we have muted emotional responses to our memories of our life, right? We have to clear out the data. Imagine your brain to be a computer. So if I want to download a file onto my phone, that was weird. If I wanted to download a file, it's like green. I tell you guys, lights shine in my window and I'm in a cove. There's no way. So it's just interesting thing that happens. Anyway, no, there's no car where this window is. There's no car. Obviously, no cars can shine in the window. It's in a cove. It never scares me. Usually it's a validating thing, but it'll happen. But yeah, where my window is, I don't know, I'll have to show you guys one day when I go live. It's in a cove to where the driveway doesn't go anywhere near it. Happy New Year, Jade. It's happened a few times, and it always creeps me out because there's no cars that can go that way. Anyway, never scared, but that one looked a little green. Sometimes they look blue. So when the Schumann resonance goes up, start to notice this is the time where you need to be hydrating a lot. You're probably going to be tired. You either get tired or insomnia. Okay, like different people. Drink a lot of water and go to sleep when you're tired. Okay. Journal everything. Okay, because when that goes up, you are deciphering code in your subconscious, which will likely start to come to you like a memory within the next few days. Okay, like you're going to start having, oh yeah. Now I want to be clear. In order to this is going to be the part where I cut to. In order to not gaslight yourself and to understand what you're about to have aha moments about, you can't, which somebody had told me this, you cannot apply the same science, understanding of our reality, limits, anything You can't. That's hard for people. It was hard for me. Okay. As a science-based person, it was really fucking hard. You can't. They don't apply. Because everything you were taught about what you are and the reality was constructed. It was constructed to keep you in control, to keep you from being able to rise in your divinity. So when you get these, and they're going to seem far-fetched, some of them are going to seem, you're going to be like, there is no way. Write it down. Because not everything you're going to be shown is going to be within the confines of the reality in which we found ourselves. It doesn't mean it's any less real. The moment that you understand that we were lied to, you were lied to, I was lied to, everyone was lied to, we were indoctrinated to think ourselves quite weak, quite basic in our construction and design. Groveling sinners who have no power, no say, and no choice, and no real connection to God until we face in Judgment Day. That science only works specific ways, yet I tell people, why have we just accepted the world wonders that science can't explain? No physicist can tell you how it was done. The pyramids of Giza. No scientist can tell you how it was done. Stonehenge, same. It also can't be replicated. Okay. It can't be replicated with modern tools and technology. Exactly. And giants never existed. So we consistently find things. And if we choose to look, we're like, oh, that couldn't have been true. I talked the last time I I was live about all the chambers beneath these world wonders. How a lot of these pyramids have chambers in the ground. And almost every nation has them, yet they're prevented from excavating and testing. Every nation, they don't want them to excavate. And I always like to point this out, especially in America. Guess why? The environmental hazards. That's a big deal. They don't want anything to happen with the environment, yet they'll frack below the tectonic plates. And they won't let an archaeologist excavate a little bit into the chambers to take samples, because the little bit that has been done has suggested that humans created something 10,000 years ago, 20,000 years ago. And what would that go against? What story? What book? The earth was only created 5,500 years, something like that. So how were humans, who were at that time supposed to be hunter-gatherers, they weren't supposed to have intelligence, creating something that can't be replicated, and at least at baseline has an understanding that is far greater than ours of physics, put that out there, but also astronomy. Now, a lot of people will say it was all agriculture. I don't believe it was. Now, I'm not going to disagree. Okay, the aspects of it were agricultural to help create a calendar. These were communication. See, at one point, we used to freely communicate with extraterrestrials. Okay, and they were energetic points. Okay, I always tell people the pyramids of Giza used to have gold on the top of them. Gold is a very good energy conductor, actually the best energy conductor. We don't use it. We use copper in our wiring because it's cheaper. Thank you, Tracy. We don't use gold because of the price. But when you see the pyramids, what do you see? Plaster, where it was removed, right? Rendering that energy source, or that whatever they like to tell you it is, useless, because it's missing the component that can conduct energy. They were placed at very specific places. So we've accepted wonders of the world and just said, well, it's a wonder of the world. It is a wonder of the world. and go on about our day like worker ants. Instead of looking at it and going, holy, holy shit, why did we ever just accept this? Why are we okay with limiting our knowledge and understanding of our origins? Wouldn't we all like to know if human hands were building advanced chambers, structures, monoliths, everything 10, 20,000 years ago? Wouldn't we all like to know that? And wouldn't we all like to know how they had a better understanding of physics than we do modern day, given the understanding we have that we are as advanced as it gets in this present moment? They also convinced us all that time was linear. You see, these things exist and time is linear. These things exist and they were built by hunter-gatherers and time is linear. Better understanding of physics. So that alone should let everyone know we've been lied to. Okay. Because if we hadn't, at minimum, they would allow excavation. They would allow further knowledge. I also shared with people how little we know about the human genome. I talk about this all the time. I'm fascinated with the human genome. I debated going to medical school so I could research it. Was advised not to because the research not very well funded. No shocker, because here's why. The human genome, okay, the zygote in utero, is all at least starts with an X, okay? X is a life chromosome. XX is biologically female. XY typically biologically male. This is reproductive organs. But in utero, the female body fights the Y chromosome, the male chromosome, because it sees it as a deformity. Okay? Fights it. So all kinds of things happen before the reproductive organs are formed. And that Y chromosome can sling back in, okay, just in time to create the reproductive organs. And because our society assigns the entire gender binary based on what the biology of the reproductive organs they see. And sometimes they guess. Sometimes it's both. And they decide, and they have the parents decide. Sometimes never tell that child until they reach reproductive age or puberty and wonder what's happening, you see. And that was very hidden and shameful. It was not something you talked about, although it's a natural occurrence. Now, why would that happen? Why would things like intersex happen? Is because we're fascinating creatures in utero. So you could quite literally, and vice versa, have the wiring and everything within your biology be female. And then that Y chromosome slings it back in and creates male reproductive organs. And then your whole life, you will be identified and treated like a male. Okay? Vice versa for females. So not only are we all on the spectrum on just about everything, but we are on the spectrum in our biology on a molecular level. And the reason why I didn't go to medical school to study this further is because it is fought against left and right, tooth and nail. Can anyone guess why? The more we have learned about the human genome, the more we have learned how wrong we had it. That we are, quite frankly, all on the spectrum and always have been, by the way. It's not a new thing. Not at all. But if we did that, then we might have to, if we did look into it, and we might have to acknowledge that the binaries, the very strict binaries we've put on everyone in society, definitely in the United States, might not be good and or healthy because we're so unique. We don't know how long the Y chromosome was in us. I'm XXY. I share that with people. That's actually not that uncommon. XXY typically forms a female biologically. But get this, Y chromosome does some things to the brain. It affects the frontal cortex, the frontal lobe, decision making, logic, impulse, things like that. I happen to be on the spectrum, ADHD. That is the most common byproduct of XXY biological females. So, while the I am actually, thank you, amazing. While the entire binaries that we've put on to treat, men behave this way and women behave this way, if we actually learned that on a mental level, you could have women who are much more wired as men, except for their biology, and men who are much more wired as women, except for their reproductive organs and biology. That's it. And then we would realize that our biology is frankly just for reproduction. And we would treat everyone, we wouldn't put binaries on anybody, because if that way everyone would live authentically to who they were. Everyone. And if everyone lived authentically to who they were and fell in love with and liked and chose to be with anyone authentically who they were, I will never be able to explain how different our society would look, how different marriages would look, if marriages would even exist. We have to remember they were a contract, they were a business agreement for a long time. Because to keep control, you have to divide. And one of the best ways to divide is to pit one against the other. And when you look at one and you say, here's one that biologically tends to be bigger in size, we can make that one feel that they are superior and they need to keep that other one in line because they're physically bigger. And now maybe there would be some that would very much enjoy that, and there would be some that is very much against what they would like to do. It isn't who they are. But then they get ostracized. Then they get teased, treated differently. They don't fit the box quite enough. And then we have women. Oh, women. I know. Which doesn't even matter where you fall, how smart you are. You're always on an uphill battle. And the jealousy that we'll see, and we are seeing coming from a lot of men, is because the only way that many of them knew how to grab what they would consider like masculinity was to grab the most toxic form of it, because they did not know how to be their authentic self and what everyone expected them to be at the same time. Similar things happen with women as well. When you feel powerless, you might as well just succumb to the absence of power. When you feel that you are the one in power, even when that isn't natural to you or what you want to be, but that isn't accepted, you're going to grab an aggressive form of it because you don't know how to be both, because you might show your cards. And that would be okay if we didn't have such bad homophobia. Now, homophobia is also rooted in misogyny. And this is easy to explain, even on an indoctrination level. So people love to tell me, given the way I look, what about the city of Sodom? What about that? That city and that story that they're discussing, there was another element that people graze over, and that is that in Hebrew law, I talk about this, if travelers showed up at your door, you had to let them in and offer them refuge. It was Hebrew law. You had to do that. Big deal if you didn't. Now, 3 travelers, they were actually angels, showed up at the gates of city of Sodom. The city of Sodom wasn't about being gay. They were wealthy. Okay? They were selfish. Their promiscuity was very least of their, they were selfish. And they thought that these 3 travelers might steal from them. So they refused them. So that's actually why it was, burned. But the reason why we harp so much on thou shalt not lay with a man is because the way that that book was written gave such privilege to a man that if you were born male, why would you, born male, smack that gift in the face and allow another man to treat you like a woman, thus birthing homophobia? That's where it starts with men. Why would you allow another man to treat you like a woman? With women, especially women like me, how dare you exist not needing a man? That's why people like me catch so much shit, no matter what I say about men or women. I'm a man hater. Okay? Doesn't matter what I say. Doesn't matter if it's true. It's not, but it doesn't change. The reason that happens to me is because I embody something that says I don't need a man. It doesn't mean I hate men. I've shared most of my guy friends are men. I'm XXY. The things I enjoy usually are more dude things. Hey, Kyle. Good to see you. Muffy, I absolutely love that you brought that up. I have a hard time articulating that on lives, but very true. This was another thing. I'm going to pin this. Um, this is actually a very real thing. If that's okay, I'm going to pin it. I just couldn't say it. Wait, I don't think I can. Oh, what? There we go. No, it won't let me. Okay, sorry. But if you saw that, that was a big reason. It's good to see you, Kyle. You guys, Kyle's awesome. Me and him have been through some stuff, haven't we, buddy? We have to catch up soon. I know we keep saying that, but we actually need to do it. Yeah, it's very difficult to say that, but you're correct. That's actually what it was. That's actually what it was technically designed for. So when a masculine female walks in confidence, our embodiment says that we're gay. Okay, so that's one thing. It just, most people don't believe I have a husband at home. I'm still trying to sell them on it, but not gonna happen. Oh, there it goes again. I do have a husband at home, and it's telling on me. So when you walk with that, and you look gay to someone who's kind of rooted in that says you don't need a man. So I live my life without men. I don't need one. Does that mean I hate them? Because why, if it's not rooted in misogyny, then why don't we ask gay men all the time why they hate women so much? What woman hurt them? You know how many times I've been asked that? Just point that out. How many times I've been asked, what man hurt you? I always like to remind people, it's a little telling if you think all this happened from a very girly girl to this. Probably not going to get the point across that you want to. And so, thank you, Olivia. No, yeah. Yeah, no, totally, Kyle. Let me know. Send me a message. But we don't ask gay men that. And we shouldn't, because to be fair, most gay men do not have an issue with women. I'm not going to say all of them don't, but most of them don't. They love women. They just don't. That's not their bag. We're kind of the same way, a lot of us. I like guys. I like them as friends, just not my bag. My buddies. So this is what this patriarchal aspect has caused, is it's caused a lot more grabbing onto something that doesn't feel, and I'm going to say this to most men, and I thoroughly believe this, does not feel as natural at all. And because it doesn't feel natural, they're grabbing onto a very toxic form of it. And I even said before that the Y chromosome was being changed, was being altered. I didn't have a reason for that, but I can say that I definitely did say that. And I didn't know why. Remember I said we don't always know why and the science doesn't explain it. I was told, and I have it in my journals, the Y chromosome was being changed, was being altered. Didn't have science to prove this. Didn't have anything. Lo and behold, scientists have just found that the Y chromosome is shrinking rapidly, and they don't know why. I know why. I know why. It's actually not anything new. This has been happening for a minute. And I want to just share, because I like to revisit this, when the 4B movement was happening. And I was asking guys who were young, in their early 20s, like, who were like, we need to go back to traditional this and that. And I'm like, you weren't even alive. And when you move out of your parents' house and you get your own apartment, then you talk to me about supporting a wife, you know? But I was confused. Like, why are these young men wanting that? That's so crazy. Like, why are these young guys wanting this? Like, guys in my generation, I thought were, I don't know, that wasn't their bag, at least not the ones I knew. So I wondered what was happening. Because that little tweak happened. And these men, and when I say this, I'm going to be very clear. When I say that there are more feminine attributes to men, a lot of men will take insult to that, take offense. I want to be very clear. That is the biggest lie in our indoctrination. That your feminine is the worst part, the weak part. It's actually where your strength comes in, your mental fortitude. So these men who were likely had their Y chromosome shifted and it wasn't documented, this pushing by legislation and old boomers, because they know what it might bring, they won't know how to grab it. It'll feel foreign to them. So they'll grab the most toxic version of it they can to not show their cards. And a lot of that stems from hurt and jealousy from when they were a child. Understand that most of the damage from our indoctrination happens when we're young. So, and I say this a lot, when your young child, your son, falls and skins his knee and cries, or because he's hurt, instead of telling him to man up, or the boys don't cry, or any of that stuff, or dismissing behavior that's not okay, because boys will be boys, hug them, teach them, console them the way you would your daughter. Because they watched their sisters get consoled, get hugged, get coddled a little. And they didn't. Because they didn't. They're angry at women. In no way am I excusing harm. I'm no way, ever. It's not excusable. But this is systemic. It was planned. And it makes sense. That if your entire childhood, all you wanted was to be yourself. Because we have to understand that kids are kids, boy or girl, they're children. It's important that when they're afraid, they're reassured. And that does not matter what is on their gender marker. That they're told it's okay to have emotions and to cry. Being a man doesn't mean stuffing your hurt into what we would now call anger. Because anger is a secondary emotion. Its root is hurt or fear, and sometimes both. Anger is a bullshit emotion that excuses even worse and shittier behavior. Stop saying anger. Operate from a place of hurt or fear. Imagine if the times you would say, I'm angry, I'm pissed. You would say, I'm hurt because of this, or I'm afraid, or I am hurt and afraid because this. Because ultimately, that's your anger. That's where it stems from. And it's okay. It's okay. Your hurt can also be empathetic. Sometimes you can have a feeling of anger, but it's because you have empathy hurt. Somebody got hurt and it hurt you that they were hurt, because we're all connected. When I tell you guys that the rise of the divine feminine, which many people have heard, is happening, and it may not look the way you think, but it is happening, and it is up to us to see it through. This is not a matter. The feminine does not just belong to women. Men have a feminine as well, the moment they choose to embrace it. And when men embrace their divine feminine, now this is where I'm going to ask everyone, please tap the screen. When I start to talk about this, I have a lot of issues with my live, and I want to say this was a piece of the puzzle that I got recently, and it has been the most muted, my entire platform, but really lately, which has piqued my interest, why they really don't want me to share this with you guys. Every male has an X chromosome, okay? The life chromosome, the female chromosome, every man has one, okay? You have to. You cannot live with just the Y. It can't live on its own, okay? So every man has it. Hey, Brad, we'll talk later. I called you earlier. I left you a message. Every man has it. And women, most women, have XX, or some of us have XXY. Now, the XX chromosome has a tremendous power, okay? And its thoughts and energy, tremendous. Yeshua understood this. Those that are biologically male have just as much, absolutely, Brad, have just as much power in many ways when they thoroughly embrace their divine feminine. But if their feminine is demonized because they've associated femininity with weakness, lesser than, and all the stuff that the indoctrinations told us, they think it's a bad thing, a weak thing. Well, now, if there were powers in play, controlling and pulling all the strings, manipulating everything, they would not want you to know your power. So they would demonize the very thing that would return it to you. You see, when you embrace your feminine, you get the oneness, understanding that everything is one, we're all connected. The protectiveness. A lot of men think their protectiveness is their masculine. No, your masculine is when you act, okay? When you do something to protect. But the feeling you get of protectiveness is your feminine. It's a beautiful thing. So when you feel protective of someone or something, it's your feminine. When you go and you go and you go, when you're mentally exhausted, that's your feminine. When you consider others, there it is. Consider others. Now, I want to be very clear, this isn't just a male thing. Women have issues not considering others as well. That's what happens when this is systemic. When a society becomes systemic, both start to emulate what is accepted to live, to get through. We all have to be a little worse than what we want to be to live here. But why? Hey, Scott. Hi, Tony. But why? So, if that thought, your mind, and your fear fed something, let's say in this fictitious story I'm telling that's not real, in this fairy tale land, there was something that could harness energy, use it for bad things. Let's say that they found out that There was one that was really strong, a creator of a life. But if they kept it, as much of that demographic in a very low vibrational place, they would collect quite a bit of powerful low vibrational energy. So what would happen then if that fear dried up, became power, knowledge, and understanding? What happens when you've traumatized an entire world globally and a nation so bad that it takes quite a bit to scare them? They might get more aggressive in their tactic. So while I have told everyone not to be afraid, I can't say this strong enough. There is an energetic, in this fictitious world, an energetic battle happening between good and evil. And you're feminine, both male and female, but they know where to go. They know where to strike. And I wish I could sit here and say, and you know what, guys, it's going to get so much better. It will. It will be okay. It will get better. It's just not yet. We have to learn this. We have to learn it. We have to learn to not just not be afraid. We have to learn to be powerful, to grab the inner Viking in all of us. I've shared this before. Many, as a part to try to off throw this, because it was understood by the others why this was being done. They shifted the essence or the souls. So a lot of men have female souls. Whether they take offense to that or not, I don't know. And a lot of women have male souls. That was intentional. Doesn't mean you're male or masculine. It just means the core soul of you is actually incarnated, and at its core, more male. And Sandy, I like that you say that. I'm going to hit on that later. So that was a part of it, was they started putting very divine, powerful female souls into male avatars to help tip the scale. Very, very strong, powerful male souls into female avatars for women to grab their divine masculine. You see, that is important. We can hope that men will grab their divine feminine. We can. And I hope they do. I really do. Because I say this, and I've said it 100 times, and it bears repeating. When you are around a man in his divine masculine, which means he's embraced his divine feminine, it is an essence that you can feel, a confidence. And to embrace your divine feminine does not mean to be effeminate, though that is not a bad thing. It is a confidence that they can carry, and it is quite intoxicating. They don't need to blast it or be hateful or scream or be terrible. They know who they are. They stand on the side of the good, confidently. There are many on this app walking in their divine masculinity. And we know the difference. You can feel it. It was important. A lot of times, it was their female partners that helped them to do this, or gave them a place where they could be comfortable growing into it. I say that. That's more of what it is when a man has a place, where he can be comfortable embracing that side of him and understanding what it actually means, what femininity actually means. It doesn't mean, all right, Bob, go put the heels on and the lipstick and I'll show you how to put some rouge. No. It means being allowed to have feelings. It's being allowed to contemplate. It's being allowed to be your authentic self. And sometimes being supported by someone who loves you dearly during that process is all it takes. And then they walk confidently with a better understanding. See, knowledge helps us grab the duality that we all carry. Yes, Tony, you can totally ask something. So when I talk about femininity and masculinity, I want to be clear. It is not attached to the twin flame journey. Not even a little, not even an iota. It is the yin and the yang. There is a duality that we all carry. We are physical beings in part, and we are in part spiritual beings. We are a spiritual being having a physical experience duality. Everything has that, the balance. So every being should embrace authentically their divine feminine and their divine masculine. But my loves, the rise of the divine feminine is because that was what was hidden, because it's our power. Our masculine is to act. And act when you have embraced when you have been in your divine feminine or embraced your divine feminine, you have already contemplated. You're not being impulsive, which is toxic. You've contemplated, you've made a decision. It is for the greater good, and you take action. It's not assigned to your gender, is my point. We all carry the duality. Doesn't matter what they put on your marker, on your birth certificate. Doesn't matter what people see when they look at you. We all carry it. I am more of a physical embodiment of this. You don't have to look like me. But the feminine is why you're hearing that word so much, is because we are in that extreme masculine, the toxic version of it. Women are too. When I say women need to grab their divine masculine, I mean grab your power, your fearlessness. Men in their divine feminine doesn't mean that you stop with your masculine of the ability, the capability to act. It just means you give forethought. You consider the repercussions. You consider the impact before you do. Simple. But that feminine, that missing part of our society, is what makes us the most powerful. It is what makes us the most powerful, and it is what they are siphoning fear out of. They are siphoning fear out of women. And it makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. Yeah, Tony, give me one sec. Oh, okay. It makes perfect sense with how we've been set up, how our history, his story, has been told. I told people, I share these little things. I talked about Joan of Arc. Okay, Joan of Arc. Boudica. Another one. Joan of Arc, though, let's just stay with her. Joan of Arc was in her late teens when she led an army. I want to be very clear. Joan of Arc had witnessed something terrible happen when she was in France. Her mother and her sister, by the English. And the English were brutal. Yeah, they were brutal. So she had trauma. What she ended up doing, though, is she prayed. She was very religious. I hear something interesting. Very religious. She was Catholic. She prayed because she wanted an answer. She wanted help. She was full of anger, as you would be. She found a sword in a field. She thought that was the answer to the prayer. The God had put the sword there as a sign. Now here's where she embraced her divine masculine. Is if she looked around at all the circumstance. I'm a teenage girl. I'm existing in a time where women are not taken seriously in any place, pretty much. I'm not a thoroughly trained warrior, and I'm not very big. She wasn't very big. And no one's going to take me seriously. I mean, that would be what she'd do. She'd look around and be like, what do you mean by this, God? Give me a sword. What do you think? I'm just going to waltz in and take over and go defeat the English army? My God, like, really? I mean, that's what circumstance would have said to her. She believed herself to be divinely protected, that she would not be harmed while doing this. She received information that she would lead to a victory. She would lead the army to a victory. And against all odds, yes, I am. Against all odds, that's exactly what she did. Now, if she had looked at her circumstance for too long, she wouldn't have even attempted. She wouldn't have even attempted, let alone actually been put in that position, and let alone actually did it. She would have said, "This is again like, yeah, right." I mean, this is what keeps us from knowing our power and our magic is looking around and going, I mean, why me? Why me? All the odds are against me. They're not going to let me. Absolutely, Sandy, good to see you. But instead, she did it. She did it because she believed that God would protect her. And she went into a monastery she went to the church. She went to the church, believe it or not. And this priest, a lot of people wonder before she even led the first army, how was she even able to get there? The priest had witnessed something with her, a few things that he found unexplainable. He did believe that she was a prophet. He didn't understand it within the constructs of their particular religion, but he believed it. So they cut her hair short so she would not be detectable as a woman against the English, because it was no secret what they would do. They tried to hide that she was female with the soldiers because they didn't think the soldiers would want to follow her. But when she spoke, immediately they could kind of tell, this is either a very young boy or it's, oh, yep, that's a woman. Okay. But the priest encouraged the soldiers to believe her. And some of these men did. Some of them knew they would have to go to battle anyway, because, I mean, England was just attacking them left and right. And they did. And they won. They defeated England. They defeated them. And when I say against all odds, I mean all odds, aside from the fact that she was a girl, a young girl. The army was smaller. There was just no, it shouldn't have happened. England had been just tearing up France for a while. It wasn't really realistic. Yet here they were, defeating England. And Joan of Arc battled. It wasn't like she led and then ran off and hid somewhere. She couldn't forget what she saw, and she wanted revenge. She wanted to do it. Okay. She led a few battles until there was one that was lost. Essentially, the French had to retreat. But England caught wind that there was a girl leading the French army, and they really didn't like that embarrassment. And they couldn't get her. There were bounties on her. The king at the time wanted her brought. Like, there was money offered. And it wasn't like she was off hidden somewhere. So a lot of these English soldiers were, their eyes peeled, because the king wanted this girl, because he was shamed. This girl was leading a battle that was beating their army, and he was shamed. He couldn't get her. Joan of Arc stayed, not only led the armies, but she stayed alive against all odds. Everything about her life was against the odds because she did not consider the odds. She moved in faith. She moved in belief that she could. If she had looked at circumstance and probability, she wouldn't have done it. We all can agree to that. But what I'm going to add to this is that the only thing that got her was she surrendered, because England couldn't get her on the battlefield or any other way. They got a hold of the church, the big one, and said, there is a woman, a girl, claiming to be a prophet and a mouthpiece for God. Is it glitching? Oh my God. Sorry. Still glitching? I told y'all. Okay, I'm gonna give it just a second. Every freaking time. Yeah, if you guys, I am. No, yeah, Tony said it was for them. If you don't follow me, please do. I run into this, and whenever I talk about this stuff in particular, called it. Give me one sec. I'm gonna grab some water and clear this channel a little bit. But take note of when this happens. I called this shit. I said it's gonna start messing up, and I'm not gonna share anything because I speak nonsense. I speak about the Joan of Arc. Let's see. The story I just shared about Joan of Arc is not true. It's historically true. I didn't share any opinion. What? That's the story of Joan of Arc. Wikipedia might align with it as well. Why does that offend you, a woman? Why does that offend you? Why does it offend you as a woman when I share a story of a powerful woman, historic woman? Why does it offend anybody? I am part French. I've not hid that with people. I am German, French, Irish, and Native American. I'm very happy about this part of my French heritage. We'll go back. I'm going to get some water, though. I'm going to get some water. Okay. Got my water. Please let me know if it starts glitching again. That does happen. Also, I never mean to offend anyone, and my message is only for those who are ready to hear it. If you do not like what I am sharing, please, please, there's an X. Zip you right out of here. Find your people. Godspeed. And I wish you all the healing, and I'm not being sarcastic. So throughout this time, England had been really trying to get Joan of Arc. Okay, they've been really going for it, and they couldn't, and they were shamed. Okay, because they were the biggest and most powerful army in all the world, and how are they being defeated with a girl general? They were so shamed. It wasn't making them look as big, bad, and tough as they wanted. You see, so what they did is they said, "Oh, we can't seem to get her, no matter how many men we send after her. That's odd." Now, to be fair, the French army grew to love her. The entire country grew to love her and were very protective of her. But she refused to be protected by men. She stayed on the field. She stayed on the battlefield the whole time. Even though the French soldiers, they did love her. With that, after the first battle, that was it. The entire country would protect her with their lives. That's how they viewed it, because England was really being terrible to France at the time. So after several attempts, and they couldn't get this rogue girl who was defeating their armies, they reached out to the church, and they said, "Hey, there's a girl saying that she's a prophet, that she's talking to God. That's not allowed, right? That's bad." You need to go to France, check that out. Bad news. So they did. Not over the fighting or the attempt to colonize or take their land. It was what? There's a girl saying she can talk to God. We'll be right there. Oh my God. Post haste. Isn't that funny? So then, they showed up. Okay, as did the English to see this trial happen. And the original French priest and monastery, they wanted to protect her. And they tried pleading with the church. They said, "We understand what the text, but this priest was continuously saying, she's special. She is touched by God. Don't harm her. She is." He at that point didn't care what the book said. He said, "I've seen it myself. She's godly. She is." Nope. Now the English wanted her. They wanted bad things. And this church, the French church, Catholic church, was like, don't harm her, please. So there was this conundrum that they were in. And the part of her story that doesn't get shared a lot was her only downfall was she surrendered to the faith that she did very much believe in. That's how she lost it. Thank you, Jem. That was how she was brought down, was surrendering, turning herself in to a faith. The very one that she believed was her driving force and protection. Not knowing that she was her own protection. So in order to save them from any issues, she turned herself in so that because they were starting to threaten the French Catholic Church and say, "You better turn her in." And she's like, I'm turning in. And they held her. And the English were there. Thank you, Donna and Rhonda. I see you subscribing. They held her captive. What people don't talk about is what happened when they held her captive. So the big one, the one out of Rome, had the English like, "Hey, we've done a lot, and all we want is this." Thank you. All we want is this girl. That's it. And the French going, "Don't you do that. Like, the whole country will turn." Like, yeah. So they said, "Okay, look, if she says that it was all made up, she did not speak to God, we'll let her go." The English did not like this. They were like, "Are you kidding me? You're just going to let her go. You're going to let her go." See, technically, she hadn't done anything that wrong except for heresy. So if she confessed that it was a lie, blasphemy. If she confessed it was all a lie, then it would diminish her credibility and make sure everyone knew that women couldn't be mouthpieces for God. Just a quick reminder, because the French were starting to believe a little different given what they just experienced. And there is something sparkly on me and I can't, there we go. I don't know what that is. I got glitter. And the French the French church was excited about this. Not really excited, but they were like, "You'll be safe. They're not going to harm you. We know the truth. It's okay. We know the truth." But what they didn't know was that the English were very upset at this lenient punishment. They were very upset with the church after all they'd done. So they allowed the English in where she was being held for a number of days. Use your imagination. And she was going to sign it, but she felt betrayed. She felt betrayed. See, that whole time she thought that she was protected by God, a mouthpiece for God. She didn't care about the rules. She was actually very, very devout. She would ask constantly to see the priest for her confession. She wanted to tell him what was happening to her. She saw a side of that faith that ruined her complete reality. The very thing that she believed made her invincible helped her to liberate her people against all odds as a girl in her late teens. Had just betrayed her, and she knew it. And what she went through in that time was, I can't, and nor will I. You can use your imagination. So that was the little trade-off. So she refused to sign it. She didn't trust it, and she refused to sign it. You have to remember, too, that her headspace, where she was at, what she had gone through, she wanted it to end. At this point, she didn't trust anything that was anything to be real. Anything. So she didn't trust that she'd be let go. But even if she was, she had just been put through unthinkable things with the knowledge of the church. She wanted out. She wanted out. They put her in a dress. You guys know. Before they set her ablaze, they put her in a dress. Now, this wasn't because they wanted her to be proper. For the last several years, she had, by most standards of that day, imitated a man. She was a warrior. She couldn't ride in a dress. You see, the issue was the English army was upset that she was a girl, a woman. So was the ones that held her captive. It was a stark reminder of what she was. And in the time leading up until her that moment where she was reminded again. Imagine the betrayal. Yeah, they made sure the girl saw it. Not much different throughout witch trials. That didn't just happen in Salem. Not at all. Now, Boudica's another one. Look into that. A lot of people are thoroughly convinced that the Roman Empire, after she spanked them a bunch of times, took her out, like ended her. They don't know that for sure. There are rumors that she might have gotten away. Look what she did. Look her up. She's another one. We may never know, and we can go through all the hypotheses of how this teenage girl led battle, fought on battlefields with a bounty on her head, with a group of poor soldiers wanting to make their king happy, and somehow eluded them every time. And the only time she was caught was when she was deceived. See, it's a common thread. Deception. I won't go into it now, but I shared about the Minoans and the Mycenaeans. The vision I got about that. Deception is a kryptonite. Boudica is her name. Her story's a little rough, but there are no women in history that don't have a rough story. Can you pin that, Marnie? So these breadcrumbs that we can look at. And if I say to you, you are far more powerful than you think. Far more. Your fear is a sacred energy. And so become fearless. Because in this place, that type of sacred energy isn't warranted. Our biggest obstacle has been and will be deception, which has been the consistent downfall. I say this all the time. Deception. Joan of Arc was deceived by her faith. She trusted that she would be okay in the hands of the church. She trusted that. As she should have. You know? She believed in it very much. She's deceived. Give me one sec. Sorry. What can we unite in? Well, truth to be told, right now, I would say this: the running game, the running string that is going. Let's say hypothetically in this fictitious world, that keeping you afraid fed something, a very powerful energy that you have. When you believe yourself to be divinely protected, you are. I've said that, and I mean it. Now, you can't just say, I am divinely protected. You must believe it. The reason Joan of Arc was because she genuinely believed in God, that God, not realizing that she was divinely protected because she believed it so. Genuinely, in her heart and in her gut. That is the feminine, the body, the intuition, the heart. Unless somebody else wants to rattle me how she is one of maybe the only people to have a bounty on her head and never get caught by the English military at that time. I bet that wound still stings a little. And she was right there on the battlefield. Refused to leave. Refused to retreat. You see, the French were nervous of her getting taken too, but she was convinced she would not be harmed. She was divinely protected. She was not going to be harmed. Well, it was God protecting her in a way, but it was the activation of God inside of her. Sometimes we use a conduit when we don't feel that we're enough. Source is a creative energy that is in all of us. She activated something. She believed it very genuinely. Now, sadly, because she assigned it to something else, that very something else deceived her and was her demise. But she believed it. Well, I imagine everybody would be afraid of that. But at the time, she made the decision. She knew what would happen if she didn't sign it, and she didn't sign it. Am I saying that the armor of God is, in short, a shield we create? Yes, you have that power. You have that power. I use her as an example. Boudica was not of the same faith. What's interesting is not many women would dare think themselves, or this is a tricky part, to say that God's inside of you and you are part God in an institution and in a society that won't even allow many women to be preachers or priests or mouthpieces or speak on it. If we live in a place where in your reality you're not even allowed to talk to people about it on a grand scale for the most part, why would you ever think you were close? Now, this does branch out to men as well. It's humankind. But in particular, they've chose to narrow down and target women, which makes me believe that there's something more. And we can see these instances in history. The natives have several. We don't learn about native history as much as we should. Several native warriors, females. There's debate on General Custer. Now, the colonizers didn't want European women to see the dynamic of how native women were treated by native men, because they might get ideas that they should be treated that way too, that they should have purpose, be respected. Oh, God. So in the history that we all learned, all of the greatest warriors were male, and not just male, they were usually chiefs if they took down somebody big. But the natives know better. They have several female warriors that they revere, because they didn't live in the binary. They understood that there was a mother, father, masculine, feminine balance. That's how that worked. In all societies, we can see that. But the education and information that we get here highlights just the one. That way we don't hear about ones that we can identify with. Thank you. Didn't women back in the day give divine counsel to kings? Yes and no. You see, women didn't as much, and the wives did. That's why they created eunuchs to give counsel to kings, because they understood something. They understood there was a power with women, but they didn't want women to ever feel. So they would assign eunuchs. And if you're unfamiliar with what they used to do to create a eunuch, they would do what they could in their primitive ways to prevent the attributes of that person becoming more male in thought, appearance, essence, to emulate a woman in many ways, but not be. This would keep women from ever thinking that they could be worthy enough. So you need a male mind without the male evilness and drive. That's what they thought. They created eunuchs. And they did terrible things to their body as babies to do that. Why would they do that to a man? Eunuchs weren't women. They weren't. I tease that I'm a eunuch because I'm just on this whole never going to date again. But eunuchs were male. Hmm? You can have a Google of what they did, how eunuchs were created. And every kingdom had one or two, usually one though, because this was the feminine part of their council. But on the flip side of that, there were matriarchal societies, thriving ones, where women ruled. And they had male counsel. No one was oppressed. Now, these societies started to get decimated because they didn't want the ones that they had control of seeing how happily other people lived. But to answer your question, in the patriarchal rule, the queen could, in private, give counsel. On occasion, they would listen to a woman, but it would have to be a family member. And so that's why they created eunuchs. To have a man come with a female perspective. They would rather do that to a boy than have an intelligent female. Because not only were they aware there was intelligent women, because they sought them out and targeted them, they didn't want other women thinking, well, if I could do this, why can't I do that? They didn't ever want women to know their power. So they would mutilate boys to create eunuchs to keep women in their place. That's how far it will go. So when I tell you guys, a lot of work has gone into hiding this, a lot of work and a lot of suffering. Now, these eunuchs were not, they were young. They were Usually it was baby from a child. It was assigned. They never had a say. And even if they had, by the time they were old enough to understand what to say, it was too late. So that's what they did. And this is normal for us, right? This is a normal way of life. To hate something so much, or to want to make sure you keep it down so badly that you harm boys. You take something away from them. You take their manhood, quite literally. Their ability to be anything other than a female perspective in your council. To make sure that women never thought they could be smart enough to do that. Now I know I talk a lot about the gendered part of things. And right now I'm keeping it to history, things in the physical, but it goes well deeper than that. There was a reason. It wasn't just because this goes very deep to a molecular level and to a spiritual level. So, and it seems that it does not matter. It doesn't matter what spirituality. It doesn't. I'm going to go grab hold on one sec. Okay. I'm back. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Marnie. We are 4 subs away from having 50, and that is a big deal. I'm actually still learning what that means, but yeah. Hi, brown eyed girl. So I was very lucky throughout my life I did deal with ridicule. Okay. I was a little boyish. And I excelled in sports. Didn't fare well. But in my home life, I was supported, so that mattered a lot. I talk about the importance of home life support, how it can be the saving grace that we need sometimes when we're a little different. And what I would say now is if you have air in your lungs and a beat in your heart, there is no better time than right now to be whatever you want to be, to embody whatever you want to embody, because everything they told you was a lie. Society is not going to catch up. It's not going to, like I said, I share this information not to traumatize people. I share this information to remind people how much work has gone into this, has gone into hiding this, to keeping one side down. And I can't be the only one who knows. And I have confirmation of this. And I'm writing a book, so I am I'm holding off a little. But this goes to the extraterrestrials, their understanding. I told you guys we have male souls and female bodies and female souls and male bodies. And that was done to help us understand. I am actually a male soul. I learned that. I've been on Earth as a male several times. I've been a female as well. Just to bear in mind, we have kind of been everything. I broke my nail clippers, just realized. Or I gotta fix them. We've been just about everything. But I've incarnated as a male more, and my essence is male. I was a little shocked to find that out, but not really, but I don't know. Now, many women will have male souls and they won't look like me. They just do. Many men will have female souls. You won't be able to tell. But that would be the intervention, the divine intervention, to try to help us to tip the scales and understand. Two Wolves, Flip Solomon. It's one of my favorite pieces by her. If you can see it. Without my lights glaring. I did make the frame because I do custom frames, but and I know throughout this there's not a lot of people in the spirituality world, when they talk about masculine and feminine, they're talking about twin flames, and they're assigning the masculine to men and the feminine to females, and one's wounded and one has to care for the other, and guess which one's always wounded? Another trap. There are snakes in the grass, my loves. There are snakes in the grass. Deception has been the downfall for everyone, for every woman, and mostly in men as well. And when we look back, we could think about it ourselves. When we are in our strongest and we get our teeth kicked in, it's because usually we were deceived somehow by someone we love. But in these stories I've shared, and Joan of Arc in particular, she defied all odds. I don't care where you stand. That what happened with her does not happen. She was only brought down when she surrendered because she was deceived. So what I'll add to that is, when it comes to the understandings of this reality, the extraterrestrials' part in it, dimensions, hierarchies, government rule, history, religion, spirituality, it doesn't matter, pick anything. Understand that it has been singular in its note, its delivery, and its purpose. And I understand that that's been all we've seen. And I understand how rejuvenating it can be sometimes to find someone of the other demographic that seems to really identify with you. You know, Jim Jones from the Jonestown, if anybody's familiar. One of the most horrific things to happen. Horrible. He was the one where you hear the term drink the Kool-Aid. It's kind of a shitty little play off of what happened, what he convinced people to do, what he bullied and pressured people to do. Thank you, Jim. Do you guys know that it wasn't always that way? That Jim Jones was very, very articulate. He had one of the very few integrated, non-segregated, from black to white churches. And that was a big deal for people who believed the way that he believed at the time, that all were equal. What a beautiful thing. That is a beautiful thing. Absolutely, his followers loved him. Whatever indoctrinated racism that they had in his church was gone, because everyone was seen as equal. When you see what his followers look like, they were in large part African American. I mean, I don't know the exact ratios, but it looks to be close to 50-50. And the people of the church enjoyed that. Both. Because that was closer to the true message, and I think everyone knew that in their gut. That equality he spoke about was correct. And it felt good. And then boom. Ego, power, influence. He took something very beautiful and he sullied it. He betrayed them. He betrayed them all. He betrayed them all. He made them think the reason they needed to leave the States was because the people didn't like the fact that they weren't segregated. He gained power and influence in particular with his congregation. It grew exponentially because there were white people at that time, and this was in the, 60s and 70s. At that time, they knew that this racism was wrong. Thank you, Vama. And they liked having a space where that was commonly discussed and in practice. In the Black community that was brutalized historically, liked a place where they also felt equal, something they knew in their gut was always true as well. Maybe not even in their gut, they just flat out knew it, but I can't speak to that. I can imagine the promise that it would offer people of that time. He deceived every single person's hope. Every one of them. Good people. So, don't mind me, I'm just eating crackers. Well, and Jim Jones, too. He said this stuff loud and proud. He didn't care who knew about it. He mocked elected officials. I can get the pickles if you need me to, Muffy. For what purpose? What were you? For what purpose? I don't. Yeah. I'm just curious. For what purpose did he deceive everyone? Ego. I mean, literally. Ego. Because he deceived them because he began behaving and doing things that a godly or kind man would not do to test. See, when people get power and they say power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolute, it's because it does in a lot of cases. So he started to see how devout people were. They would give him things and whatever, and he loved it. Then he started challenging them to do things that were unethical, ungood, not good. This is before they left. Now, he did it subtle in ways. I mean, again, abusers don't come out and say, hey, I'm an abuser. Watch out for me. They love bomb. Thank you, Marnie. So, as he started that, and it was subtle at first, in many ways, then he convinced everyone because they started to become under the microscope. He didn't want them talking. He didn't want people talking to their families if they were in the congregation. It was odd. People were witnessing their family members change. So the government started to look at him. Now, that is easy to spin as, well, it's because we're welcoming of all people. That's what he told his congregation, and that would be easy to believe at the time. And there could have been a part of that, but there is evidence to show that he was actually starting to behave very corrupt. Okay. But to say they're looking at us because we love all people equally and they don't want that, they don't like that. So we got to get out of here. Now, the people that went with them, a lot of them had been with the part of that church a long time. He started to believe himself to be a type of savior. You see, when we assign, it's one thing to believe that God is in you. God is in me. I know that God is in me. God is inside of me. I'm a part God. I also know that I'm no more part God than anyone else in this chat or anyone outside, anything. That keeps your ego in check of understanding that though you are a light of God, everyone you look upon is too. You wouldn't challenge them. You wouldn't want to see yourself rise above or watch them be obedient to you, to fill your ego of what you could get people to do. There were a lot of other very corrupt things he did that doesn't get talked about a lot, but use your imagination with what we've seen most what we now know as cults do. And I want to say this, and I may get in trouble, but I'm not meaning to offend anyone. This is historic. When you find me a woman that did this in America, then we'll have a chat. It tends to be men who start to excuse certain intimate behaviors. And that's seen in every spirituality as well. Look at the Hare Krishnas, how that ended up. Scientologists, how that ended up. It doesn't matter how positive something comes off at first. What Jim Jones did was correct in the beginning. He did make a stand that was correct. Everyone is equal. Until he stopped believing that. And he believed himself to be a prophet of God. Come to change the world. Well, buddy, you did. You changed a lot of people's worlds. You see, when you rise in your power and you are embracing your feminine, you look out at people who look to you and you know that they don't really look to you because they're rising in their own power. It's glitching again. My God. You work so hard to keep this message from coming out, don't you? Oh. Whelp. Absolutely. Is it still glitching? Okay. It does it a lot. And this is going to keep happening. So, what I'm going to ask as we move forward is I know this message, which should not offend anyone, regardless. Regardless, it shouldn't offend anyone. It will. Because the indoctrination runs deep. There's quite a few people who enjoy that indoctrination because they benefit from it. Oh, I know we need code words. The interesting thing, though, is what I've shared with you. All of the historic stuff you can Google anything I've said. You know, I'm not saying anything matter of fact. I'm strongly alluding to a fictitious thought in a fictitious place, and it's going to boot people off. It's going to glitch my life, and I'm begging all of you to wonder why that is. I could be inciting violence. I could be doing all kinds of terrible things. But why is it that I could call that this would happen when I started to speak about the importance of embracing the feminine in our society and in ourselves, and for women embracing the masculine? which is not found outside of you. The kingdom of heaven is inside of you, my loves. It just requires an embrace of the counter, the yin to the yang. And women are not embracing their feminine in the manner they need to either, because they don't understand what it is, and that's okay. I didn't either. The feminine part of me was my least favorite quality because I didn't understand what it was. Thank you, Beans. I didn't fit into the idea of what a feminine woman was. So the feminine aspect of me was the most confusing until I understood that I am very feminine. Not because I changed, but in fact, I actually understood what it was to be feminine. And I was lied to. My masculinity also. I was lied to. I understand what that is now too. The reason why we go heavy on the feminine is because our world is so far into the masculine that this is action with no consequence and no forethought. Now, we all have a masculine, we all have a feminine, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to look around and see that we live in a world that looks like the inhabitants have no forethought of consequence, right? They destroy it, they destroy each other. No empathy. Fragile egos can prompt entire destructions of civilizations. That isn't mental fortitude. That's a tantrum in adult form that can be very, very, very destructive if it's not healed. That's good to hear, Snow. This is what I try to talk about, is understanding what our feminine and masculine is on a root level. That your masculine is not behaving in any certain type of way, and it's definitely not being reactive and violent. That's a wounded tantrum. Children do that. And for women, your feminine is not pretending you're weaker than you are to be attractive. I'm going to say that one more time. Pretending you're weaker than you are to be attractive. Competing with one another instead of lifting each other up, giving your attention and your support. Not equally, not to women. See, a lot of people think that it's only up to men. The 4B. The 4B, which I talk about a lot, which a lot of men monetized on. The trauma of women. That was the 4B was about the trauma of women, wanting it to stop. And I remember watching a lot of women share their very vulnerable stories of things they had been through. Very inspirational. And not having a fraction of the numbers or the monetization that the men speaking on it. Now, I want to be clear, I do think that men speaking on it wasn't a bad thing. I recommended one, in fact, because I think that it would be better received from men to hear it from a man. I was very careful about who I recommend, and I still stand by it. But lo and behold, come to find out, all these women were flooding these lives where these men were talking about the 4B, the importance of respecting women, turned out to be blatant misogynists and womanizers and abusers. They could play a part. They knew there was money to be made. And it wouldn't have worked. It couldn't have worked. But that internalized misogyny from women looking to a man to validate their experience for it to become real. Why do you need a man to validate what you've been through? Don't gaslight yourself. That is why their lives were flooded. That is why we have no shortage of young men making thousands of dollars per live, talking nonsense. I spent a lot of time paying attention and taking note to who was supporting these men and these women. Very few supporting women. A lot of women supporting the men. So there's fucking work to do for you ladies too. I'm sorry. The 4B was about getting men to stop, and I agree. But how do you get that to happen if you can't embody the change you yourself want to see? You give your attention, your support to men, and then wonder why nothing changes. It's not only up to men. Now, we can have another conversation with men once women start to embody this themselves. And if it continues with men, then we check back in with men and go, hey, cut this out. But to expect them to behave differently when we ourselves don't do it, there's work to be done. Now, I'm not saying that the harm that comes to women is any fault of their own, but I'm saying you can change it. Stop being the weaker sex. Stop being the victim and do it. Thank you, laugh it out. See what happens when you embody the change that you want to fucking see. See what happens when you yourself stop being jealous of women and start supporting them. Laugh it out. Thank you so much. Start listening to them. And it shouldn't be a woman who looks like me every time. It shouldn't be a woman that you can kind of distance yourself from. It should be a woman who is speaking intelligently and might be beautiful to boot. There are curses to being too physically symmetrical. They get it from both sides. You can't be smart in both. You can't have substance while being beautiful. And women perpetuate it too. We don't have time, ladies, for women to not do this. I want women to grab their power and see what happens. See what happens. Leave the men be for a bit. You don't have to harm them. I've never told anyone to do anything violent. Collect yourself. I want to build a community for women. In part because I think there should be ones for men and women. Men should learn to heal with one another, where they can learn about the true definition of masculinity, that they can have feelings and cry and hug each other and not be less masculine. That they're a human being and human beings have feelings and emotions and they're allowed to express them healthy and not be shamed. But so women could learn to heal with one another as well, to not be competitive. That competitiveness stems from patriarchal conditioning as well. Do you want to know why? Because before you could go and get a job and work and make something of yourself, if you wanted a good life, you had to marry the richest man in town. Well, guess what? 30 other girls had the same plan. There goes competition. But it didn't just go away, did it? It didn't just go away when women were able to at least get the illusion that they could make something of themselves. I mean, it is always an uphill battle. I won't take it away. They stayed competitive. If you're a woman that has a man cheat on you and you find yourself angry at that woman, take a moment. Supergirl, I agree. You are powerful goddesses. You are forces to be reckoned with, behaving exactly how they conditioned you to. We need more Joan of Arcs right now. We need more Boudikas. We need more, a lot. And if not you, who else? Who else? The women who embrace this and move in their divinity have never had circumstance on their side, and look at what they did. Deception is often their kryptonite. I'm trying to show you the deception. I have been trying to show you the deception. But I am so sick of people on this app alone. I've wanted to delete this thing so many times, and I can't. I'm so sick of watching young men make God knows how much money. I don't even want to think about it. Talking gibberish, having debates, whatever. Dividing us further. Being a-holes. And then, I don't care how people feel about this, and then someone like Mama Tot, who isn't perfect. None of us are. I'm not fucking perfect. I'm not. Don't look for perfection. You will not find it. Can't stop getting it handed to her by other women most of the time. So she's already going to get it from men. And yet she doesn't have our support. Well, I will die on this hill. I don't care. I don't care about her father-in-law. I don't. She's a regular ass person, as am I. We've had no problem with idols, politicians doing ungodly things, but when a regular ass person gets a little bit of headway, then they better be damn perfect, straight and narrow. We hold people here who just happen to improve someone's day and make a little bit of money to a higher standard than we do our elected officials. Thank you, Rhonda. And if it's coming from women, you don't have to like her. You don't have to follow her. You don't have to support her. That's fine. There are plenty of people on this app that I don't connect with. I don't listen to them. It's okay. The times that she has shared what has been said to her from women regarding her son, the loss of her son, there is a special place. Because until you have seen in person, I have, what it looks like when parents lose a child. I can't imagine doing what she did afterwards, and I can't imagine coming for her. You don't want to watch her? Don't. Oh, April, are you talking to me? I'm flipping nuts. Is it the discussion about Mama Tot? That's what you think is nuts. It's not the extraterrestrial that I am, the fact that I can see you. Show yourself. Still watching, aren't you? What I'm going to say is, I do have a prism up, and I'm never the only one here. I don't speak about Mama Tot. You're upset that I was speaking about Mama Tot. Did you hear what I was saying? I will never be a mudslinger on here. I've never once used my platform to sling mud or drag anybody, not once. I have people in here who have been with me for a long time. They can tell you I don't do that. I've never named names. I don't do it. I got receipts. I have at least advocated that she is undeserving of the cruelty that she's been subject to, and I don't care who disagrees with me. You can find your ass right out of here. I don't care. She doesn't deserve it because no one does. Hi, Sandy. Thought she said, "Girl, you're flipping nuts." Doesn't sound like an agreeing. And then said, "Yes." I said, "Are you speaking to me?" She said, "Yes." Don't speak about Mama Tot. I don't know if you're a fan or you're not, but I don't sling mud. I'm actually highlighting how a woman who I'm actually quite impressed with, because I have seen what it looks like when a mother loses a child in real life. The entire world of this app got to see the heartbreak. You could feel it through the ether. And she gets up, and what heals her is helping others. I understand that. What helps me is helping others. So I understand that people have jealousy because she spoke quite a name for herself. You might feel that it's undeserving. Now, not everybody that loses a child gets a platform. Okay. My mother can share that. They don't even always get a break. My mother could share that too. But sometimes they do. And the little bit of silver lining is a little bit of monetary relief. But I promise you, I know for sure, without a shadow of a doubt, if God came to her and said, you could have your kid back, you would have to give back all the money and everything, it'd be done. So I'm impressed with her that this is what she does with her life, because I've seen what happens. And I've also seen people take it to a very dark place. And the fact that the stuff that she has shared that has been sent to her is so horrific. I have said to you guys lovingly, especially if you're religious, that God said that humans would entertain angels unaware. This goes back to the city of Sodom. The story that everyone loves to bring up to my community so much, not realizing that they were entertaining angels unaware, rejected them. I'm not saying she is, or I'm not saying she isn't. I am just saying you never know. I can't imagine what people have said, saying that to a mother who's lost a child. There is a special place. I don't believe in hell, luckily, but my God, evaluate yourself. Good night, Carrie. Because if that jealousy, or whatever it is so strong that you can say something so vile to any human, so hurtful, I don't care where it comes from. And to be frank, I don't care. I don't care what trauma you've been through if that's the way you take it out on people. There are people, I know, people in this chat that have been through the absolute worst and know better, and do not take it out on others because they couldn't bear themselves if they did it. I couldn't. Hey, Rihanna. She's just an example that seems like anytime I do happen to stumble upon a video, somebody else is saying something or accusing her of something vile. Why do we allow our politicians and governing bodies, which actually do impact our life severely, get away with everything, yet TikTok creators owe you the world? We're regular ass people. Sometimes we have a calling, sometimes we're good at it, sometimes we're just, at the end of the day, we're regular ass people. Be kinder to one another. It's unacceptable. And I'm a gay person saying this, so all the gay people who do this, who put people under magnifying, cut that shit out. It is important that we begin this journey with our best foot forward, which is trusting and leaning into something different than what we've done and what we've seen. Absolutely, God's girl. Be the change you want to see. You have no idea. Everyone that you interact with, if you leave and you do anything, everyone you interact with is likely fighting a battle. I know what it feels like to be hanging on by that thread. I'm not alone. The thread. And sometimes the tiniest kind gesture can change it. Change your day. Feeling seen in a time when you feel so incredibly alone. You have no idea what a small act of kindness can do for people every day. I didn't expect. April, you're angry, and I do hope that you heal all of that. I really do. It doesn't make anyone feel better. It doesn't improve anything. And we have to start by putting our best foot forward, reflecting on our past. That's why I bring up historical facts and information, is because we can see it if we need tangible proof. But as we move on, thank you, Donna. As we move on in these understandings, it's going to get harder and harder to explain it with the confines and the constructs of the reality that we've been misled on. You're going to feel crazy a little bit. Healing that inner child that's wounded is important, because you must walk with that inner child to redefine reality, because it wasn't told to you honestly. And it can start that transition into something better, can start as small as just beginning your day with being the light you wish to see in everyone. Everyone. Absolutely. If every one of us woke up tomorrow and were the light that we wanted to see, unapologetic, unafraid, every one of us. I don't mean all 36 of us, but I just mean everyone. Imagine that. The butterfly effect is, in theory, true. It is a vibration, though. When someone is vibrating high, what makes you vibrate high is healing those neurosynapses, but also the authenticity of looking at yourself and knowing, oh, thank you, totally. Knowing that you are doing it. You are doing the best you can. You understand we're connected. And you may not get recognition. You may not get someone tell you, you've just changed my day. But you can assume you have every day. And when you lay and you sit, you know that all of your actions that day were authentic and kind. And there's nothing you can be or need to be ashamed of. That is a great feeling. I didn't know that until very recently, and I still miss the mark sometimes. Human. But I mean it. And it increases the vibration of everything around you. And sometimes in someone's darkest moment, they could be at a fork in the road. And yours might be the interaction that shifts them, gives them that little hope. We all know what it feels like to be down in the dirt and come across a video that restores your faith in humanity. And how it can impact everything from that moment on. It can happen in an instant. So tell yourself tonight that you are a contributor to restoring the faith in humanity. Thank you, Rihanna. Thank you, Supergirl. Tell yourself. Imagine, you hear a lot of people talking about, oh, you're the main character. Well, it is kind of true, but I'm not a person that's going to say, ignore everyone, they're all figments of your imagination. No, they're all extensions of you. We become what we speak. So if a camera were on us at all times, and they caught us in all the moments, and they clipped it, would ours be any of the clips that would restore faith in humanity? I'm happy to hear that, Rihanna. Absolutely. Supergirl, that's 100% it. We are a collective consciousness. Being kind to others is being kind to yourself. Understanding that kindness does not mean becoming a martyr. See, when we're out and about, kindness can be spread out. Okay? It can just be spread out in our inner energetic circle. That's where the discernment needs to be a little bit tighter. But you'll know. You'll know because the people in your energetic circle, the people you interact with, your family, your friends, your loved ones, will want to encourage and see you thrive as you will them. And all the imperfections that you were told about, convinced yourself about, maybe even hated about yourself, we will first accept. Then you will start to love them. You will walk with that authenticity of knowing that that part that got turned on you quite a bit is something about you that makes you different and unique. And all those little bits of uniqueness make you, you. That bit of individuality within the collective consciousness. And people will learn that even though some of these things, like for me, I have all kinds of fun stuff being ADHD. They'll learn to navigate you and see what works. See the way that you can brighten a room, a day, an experience. They will feed and water the garden of you. They won't want to keep it captive. They will want all to be able to see this and experience it because it's so magnificent. They will never be jealous of it because it's your growth and they're growing too. We're all growing. It's okay when people want to dim your light to distance. Because nobody in your inner circle should want that. And if they do, it is something in them and you can't fix it. Our loyalty is not proven by our martyrism, just so we know. Loyalty. It's a funny thing. It's a funny thing how we've defined loyalty. Sacrifice. I say this a lot. They say marriage is work. Marriage is work. When does it stop being work and start becoming sacrifice? Compromised sacrifice. When you feel that you are not being heard, that is not a compromise. When you give in, it's a sacrifice. And too many of those. And even the strongest roar out of your lungs will feel like a whisper. And people worthy of your energy will never accept that. But you have to understand, The world isn't going to pave a way for you, nor is the person who will receive these sacrifices as currency to their partnership. You have to grab your divine feminine and divine masculine, your totality, the faith that sources inside of you. And you are unstoppable. You are a fearless force to be reckoned with, forged in fire. And believe it. Believe it with everything you are, because it is not a lie. There is a reason why my lives face so much issue, why my account has faced so many issues. The missing element that we can all see in this society is the feminine, both with men and women. Absolutely, Nikki. Good to see you. It is our salvation. Should we grab it? Dang, we do got 70K likes. You guys are tapping. I love it. Can't nobody stop me. Look, they won't spread me around, but we're still here, still kicking. I'm not going to stop talking about this. And I shared this on my sub only. I'm not seeing other people talk about this aspect of it when they talk about extraterrestrials. And I'm not sure if that person's still in here. They asked me about the orbs. The extraterrestrials have a way to communicate that makes you feel at ease. They do it telepathically. If you see something and you feel frightened of it, it is man-made. But don't be afraid of it. The others have been here the whole time. They don't have to show up in orb form. They're trying to, you see, they have ships. They have all kinds of different ways to show up here. They don't want fear. They understand there is an element of fear being derived, being siphoned. They don't want you to be afraid. There was a girl, and I talked about this before, whose live I watched out of Chicago. She was in my life for a bit. And she was filming orbs. They were muting her so bad. So bad. She had like 6 people in there at one point. And I could tell it was a little bit new to her, but it wasn't completely unfamiliar. I don't know how much she wanted to talk about it, but these orbs were dancing for her. And I spoke in her live a bit, just in the chat. And I could feel that she wasn't afraid. And I've told you guys for a long time, when you open your eyes to acknowledge, they will quite literally dance for you. Quite literally. They want you to know that not only is it nothing to fear, but it's also, additionally, you're very loved. You're very loved. Hang on one second, let me see. So, additionally to being very loved, they are looking out for you. Oh, I hit something. Yeah. No, I agree. It was an interesting thing because one girl was filming and she had about 300 people in, and then her child started getting upset. She had to get off of it. And then I found another one, and the girl had 18 people, then 6. It was booting people, and she stayed out in the cold in her car. And it was such a spectacular show. And I'm glad we're actually friends, because I followed her and she followed me. And I'm giving it time, and maybe if our paths cross again on this app, that I knew that she was, like, we're all something special. Let's just say that. We're all something special. But there are beings here that they really want to catch the attention of, because, like we said, maybe they're projectors, maybe they're healers, maybe their purpose is not to only be okay with these orbs and understandings of the extraterrestrial, but actually speak on behalf of them in a way. So they danced for her. And it reminded me of the first couple of times I saw them. When prior to, I was terrified of extraterrestrials. I didn't like to talk about it. And I thought to myself, they see you. She mentioned something about how they were moving in a way that was creeping her out, and they switched patterns because they were darting real fast for a second, and she said it was creeping her out a little, and then they started to. And I said, they're listening. Yours is the energy they're hearing right now. Are the orbs the angels spoken about in the Bible? Yes, but they were never. It's hard to explain because all angels essentially are forms of extraterrestrials. Like they're all forms of what we would call extraterrestrial. Um, in action, theory, and historical. When they depicted angels in the book, they didn't depict them as being quite beautiful. They were actually a little bit frightening in some cases because they looked a bit different. The wheels upon wheels. The reason that this is in the book is because, like I shared this with people, Yeshua understood this part of our origins. So they didn't call them what they really were, they called them angels. While there are angelics, which are a type of extraterrestrial, or an essence of extraterrestrial, um, in theory, by what the definitions of angels, servants of God, divine beings, we have angels all around us. Many of you are angels by that definition, many of us. So, yes, in short, the orbs that are extraterrestrial are of the light. It is really a good, evil, dark, light kind of thing. Our energy contributes to the orbs. They are a part of us. Our frequency being high instead of terrorized and scared helps that battle that has been going on for thousands of years. They're us. Thank you, Maria. I love you too. Yes, Supergirl. Actually, our higher selves. There's quite a bit. There's quite a bit with how it all works, having to do with higher states of consciousness and um, quantum entanglement and or theory of realms of Earth. Plays in a lot more. Uh, I am writing a book, which it's like when I say that to fully understand, it is going to take a minute because I don't even right now right now with this understanding. There's a bit that came in that I was kind of on, and then I got confirmation very recently, and my head exploded with happiness because I was like, I got confirmation. Oh my god, this is great. But guys, truth is stranger than fiction, and I have been ping ponging on how to make it applicable to our reality because it's so foreign. So if you know that it is so foreign to our reality, I love quantum physics too, but there's very little science that they've told us about it. A lot has been done behind the scenes. But our reality and the constructs that we were told versus what is more accurate to us is very, very difficult to explain in a way that does not that can be understood first of all, and when I say it's going to seem off the wall, I mean it, and I'm gonna have to preface the hell out of that, but I'm gonna have to remind people of what all we've seen so far, that there could be another extraterrestrials who know what happened here, what knows what happens in schools, what knows what happened, everything, the constant And that would seem absurd. It seems absurd to many of them, many of us. That home that we miss, that we can't remember, is because we come from a different realm. We come from a place that isn't like this. And this place is jarring and confusing because of its unnecessary violence, because of its cruelty that is unnecessary. Oh, yeah. Super. Once I get it wrapped up, I wrote like crazy for a long time. And what I'll say happened is this new, and I told people too, I said I got called to kind of dial back and wait just a second because there was more to it. I told my followers, I was like, I think there's more that's coming in that I need to add to it. And that's why I'm being called to hold off. Oh boy, was I right. Oh yeah. And the last handful of months, I've been off this app, except for to get on and do my lives. I really haven't been paying too much attention. What I'll say though is I got a lot of clarity and some confirmation that put a lot of the pieces together, but I am going to have to work on a way to make it make sense to someone because it is, oh yeah. You absolutely. Only when your brain has been broken and everything, you, like I tell people, it's okay to break. It's okay to break. You might need to. It's best to go ahead and do it because you can rebuild from a better, healthier place. But you can't bring over this world's constructs into what people call the new world, which is really truly just an understanding of what it really should be. You can't bring over the same constructs, the same science, none of it. That's going to be hard. That is kind of what kept me in deciphering so much longer, is because I am science based. I do know a lot about science, so I am trying to rattle how it works in science, but it doesn't. It doesn't. And the best part of that is the second that you realize it doesn't, and you keep your mind open to, I've been lied to. And I'll go ahead and tell you, you're going to say, I don't know how much. I'm going to say, go ahead and assume it's about pretty much everything. More you do that, but this doesn't mean you have to completely lose yourself. It just means it will leave you a little bit more open to information that is going to seem way far out of the confines of this reality, because this one was designed to keep us captive. The other one is liberating and freeing. The one that they don't want you to know about, you know. So if you try to grab the confines of this reality and make it applicable to that one, you're going to get stuck. They know that. And I'm going to say this. Trying to balance this understanding while also existing in the matrix. This is why so many people, so many of us feel the need to just get away, go off into the woods. Why I am building a community and have been doing that since before I even started TikTok. That was my plan. I left Texas. I came, it's a whole plan. But I've yet to meet someone who has woken up that didn't have a feeling that they wanted to go into the woods and just live. Like an immediate, I need to get the hell out of here. That is multiple reasons why. Okay, multiple. One of which is that you need a break. That's one thing. You just need a fucking break. It's okay. The other is you start to malfunction the technology. That's a sign. Our virtual experience can lie to us a lot. And that's going to get worse. Additionally, when you try to break this down and continue to exist in this matrix, in the constructs of this false upside down reality, you can't, it's very difficult to balance the two. People look at you like you're crazy. You might feel a little crazy. I spoke about Yeshua and his meditation. I'll speak about anyone who's reached a level of consciousness. They all were in isolation. Many of us are having to go through these processes of higher states of consciousness without the isolation. And that is our consciousness going, get isolated. It'll help without the distractions. But it is nice to have a group that can validate and say, you're not crazy. That's all I'm here for. As we discover everything and as we learn, I'm just here to say, I am one of the many people here to say, you're not crazy. The world is. That's unfortunate, but here's a trick. You're not crazy, the world is. Go understand yourself. Go understand the truth. And you'll see what I mean. Trying to balance the two worlds will drive you mad. Trying to push yourself as the circle into the square peg, it can't happen. That is, yes, it is like people are under a spell. That is the veil. We were under it too. The veil. It made us numb and more obtuse to the atrocities that happened so that we would continue to be good little workers in the machine. The reason why these seemingly mundane tasks are now insurmountable is because your veil's been lifted. Your heart and mind are connected. You can't normalize things but it's okay. You're preparing for a better world. How to exist in it. You're also forgiving the versions of you that maybe normalized it or maybe just wasn't. Any number of things. The matrix will deplete you the more you understand what it is. It's a tricky thing. I tell people, that's why I encourage people, if you're waking up, understand that your exit of the matrix is going to happen. And I unfortunately, or fortunately, actually, I don't think this is a curse. I do think it's a gift. You can't stop it. I tried. It doesn't work. You volunteered to wake up. You will be thankful for it. Just maybe not immediately, but you will. So remember that no matter how hard it gets, and it will continue to get hard, that a lot of that is because you're being pulled in two different directions, and one's going to become more and more foreign to you. So as we lean into this spirituality, this aspect, this awakening, which is going to, like I said, leaning in is better than fighting it. I fought it for a long time. I'm just going to humbly tell you, it sucks. Nope. I was stubborn, I wanted to return back to what I was, and I wanted to fix whatever the hell was wrong with me because I wanted my life back. Thank you, nature lover. It isn't going to work. And that shouldn't be defeating, because who you will be on the other side of this, you will like better. I promise that. I can't promise a lot of things, but I can promise on the other side of this, you will like that person better. You will feel more at one with that person. And you'll be proud and honor the versions of you that existed to get you here. All of them. But you will enjoy who you are better. That's a part of the self-love thing. That doesn't, 80K, I love it. I love you guys so much. It's a part of the self-love that's not condoned here. This world teaches you that too much confidence, too much love for yourself is arrogance. Conceited. Strike those words from your vocabulary. There's no such thing. Arrogance exists when people want to make others feel stupid around them. But yet we wholeheartedly accept that. In political debates, on this app, you can make a lot of money for being flat out arrogant. But if you love yourself, that's a bad arrogant. Doesn't harm anyone, does it? Seems to be reserved for only the select few. And you really get rewarded for doing it. But if you're a woman who loves herself unconditionally, finds herself beautiful, and her flaws, and men too. Well, that's a dirty word. Strike that word. Thank you, Marnie. Strike conceited, arrogant, full of herself, sure of herself as a bad thing. Strike it from your vocabulary immediately. You are never going to be arrogant in self-love. Ever. No matter what anyone says. If you are practicing self-love and somebody calls you arrogant, it will never be true. But when you have self-love, comes self-assurance. You'll know that. Exactly. Being self-assured is important because as you get these messages, your mind's going to want to gaslight you. Certain ones I did it to myself, heartedly. I admit this. I know I did. It's a process. I did not have self-love. I barely had self-tolerance. I walked around with a lot of guilt and shame of the versions of myself that existed before and the versions I continued to create, even though I wasn't a bad person. And I know a lot of people could identify with this. I wasn't a bad person. I was an unhealed person. But when I say that I was the one who beat the shit out of myself, nobody had to do it. It was me. When I tell people I don't have a lot of trauma from any men, and I don't hate men or anything like that, because men couldn't hold a candle to what I did to myself behind closed doors mentally. Not one. I stopped doing that. And it was the greatest gift I ever gave myself. And everyone deserves it. Everyone's worthy. Exactly. We give grace to people we love. We protect people we love, yet not ourselves. At first, if you have to view yourself as a secondary person that you love dearly and are protective of, the way you would your partner, your spouse, your child, your best friend. Thank you, Ronnie. Look at that. Look at yourself that way. And protect that person ferociously because they have been through it. Others will put them through all kinds of things. They do not deserve your hand and words and cruelty as well. You need grace. You need forgiveness. And nobody, no God, no other person can give it to you except you. Incidentally, you're the only one in charge of that. And all the versions of you that existed to get you to this point, in this moment in time, as a kind person, took a lot of shit to keep your heart kind. Honor them. Look back upon yourself and those versions as someone you love dearly. Apologize to them for the cruelty they suffered by you. Atone for it. And tell them how honored they are. Tell them how grateful you are that they did what they did, however they had to do it, to keep your heart soft in such a toxic place, with such toxic people. No matter what the circumstance, they did it. We could look back and think, oh, I should have done this sooner, I should have done that. No, you did exactly what you needed to do for exactly how long to keep your heart soft, to keep you a good person. Exactly what was necessary, because you don't know. It can be a slippery slope before it consumes you. Many people take out their trauma on all kinds of people, use it as an excuse. The versions of you that suffered throughout life likely suffered from circumstance and people and all kinds of different things, but ultimately they continue to suffer because of you. So tell them that you're grateful for what they went through to get you here. And they won't be bullied at the hands of you anymore. And they are honored and loved. Because not everyone can do that, you know. Those versions of you did what not everyone can do. So no matter how weak you felt, no matter how weak people told you you were, it will not matter. Those versions, whatever the circumstance, all of them did what they needed to do. And they deserved to be forgiven and honored and loved. That was likely what they were looking for, love. They were just looking for it. They were looking for love in all the wrong place. I couldn't help it. It's kind of true. We do look for love in all the wrong places. It starts by looking for it outside of us. Once we find it in us, we can look around. But it finds us. You see, we don't have to look for it anywhere. We find it in ourselves, and love continues to find us. We attract it. Thank you, Tracy. So, ooh, good. 80%. I love you guys. Thank you so much. So as we continue, all the versions of you, all of them, all the things you feel guilt or shame or wish you would have done a different way, let it go. Not just let it go. Walk with those versions. Look at them. Thank you, Tracy. Look at them with the respect and love they deserved, because that's ultimately what they were looking for, was acceptance, love. Thank you, Oreo. Thank you. Hit the goal. Thank you, Abby. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Donna. So that's what they were looking for. That's what they were doing. That's what they were. I know, I love you guys so much. That's what they were striving. That's what they put themselves through all the things for, was love and acceptance. Give it to them. Did they not go through enough? Give it. Walk with them. Honor them. Wear your scars of those experiences proudly, because you felt the blade when they hit. And they tell a story of how far you've come. Sometimes a story that you need to look into the mirror occasionally and remind yourself of. And when you do that, when you honor those versions and you move it, you stop guilting yourself. You start to accept and love yourself, and then you attract love. You attract positive things and loving things and good things, and you attract. It is literally the law of attraction, but it starts with you. And sometimes it has to be abrupt. Sometimes you have to rip a Band-Aid off, get yourself out of a situation. Do it. Do it. Quit beating yourself up. You guys we already have it. Like, when I say we have our work cut out for us, I mean it. We need all the versions of you on this ride. Because they're tough. Those versions of you are strong. Remember that. They're strong. We need all of them. You hold the key, my love. All of you. It's a balancing act. And the odds are stacked against us. But if a 16-year-old girl can stand against face the odds and laugh at them and achieve something quite impressive, now's our time. And if by chance this fictitious story I've told is true, that is the key to keeping this reality this way, is to mute the most powerful side of you. Let's see what happens. If they don't get the fear, if they get the Viking instead, the Joan of Arc, the Yeshua, the Mary of Magdalene, the Boudica, the Hecate. Thank you, John. Every one of these people went against the odds, did something. And there's way more, but you get the point. Broken souls that continue to get up and walk are always the strongest because they are put together again. We are not walking glass like many who have never been dinged. When I say we're forged in fire, I mean that. We look at everything you've been through. Why would you fear anything? Briefly, I talked before about the little bit of addiction that a lot of women have to watching ID and these true crimes. I get it. Facing the fear, I get it. And I'm not trying to dismiss that. But I am going to ask you to try to stop. These shows were created with intent. You know, we've watched them, right? And statistics show that men actually unalived by strangers more. By men. Why don't we have a complete show about that? Several podcasts and everything. Why do we have a show at all? It is time to reflect and collapse from the inward and recoil from the intentional bombardment of trauma while you regain your power. Your purpose is there. You have all the information. You know why you need to do it. You don't need to continuously traumatize yourself. You just don't. Try dialing back from it. Leaning into yourself. Leaning into your magic. Oh, and by the way, wrap your mind around the fact that you have magic. That's a thing. They lied when they said you didn't. Or if they thought you did, what did they do to you? There are breadcrumbs throughout history to show what a threat. They see this, and we may not understand why because it was hidden, but understand a lot of work went into oppressing one, hiding one, sending a message to one group. And I, for one, would love to expand and know why exactly, to its totality, that was. And when I say know about it, I mean remember. Because we already know. We may not remember right this moment, but when it happens, it won't feel new. We've done it before. We've been here before. lesbian biker witchcraft forever. I've always said this objectively. When I see that they're trying to mute something, even if it seems benign and I don't know why, I want to find out why. And it's very clear to see who was targeted. And I noticed that it's very intentional with fear, which is low vibrational. And in theory, if we stay positive and not low vibrational, we might shift a reality away from those that control it. Oh, our subs have it, yeah. You could subscribe if you want to. No, I'm kidding. I mean, you can if you want. We do sub-onlys on Fridays and Saturdays. Fridays and Sundays. God, I always say Fridays and Sundays. Fridays and Sundays. But the lesbian biker witchcraft is because some man told me that I was convincing or practicing, hang on a second, lesbian biker witchcraft. And I did not know what that was. So I said, okay, like, that's what I'm doing, I guess. And he was like, I think he left. But now I've just embodied it and decided we are practicing lesbian biker witchcraft. I had my leather jacket on. I don't know. But it was he was very proud of himself, I think, with that one. I don't think that he thought I would adapt it so much, but I was like, that sounds cool. Yeah, I'm into it. I don't know what it is. We'll figure that out along the way. But whatever it is, I would love to be a part of that. Being all three of those. I do ride a motorcycle. I am by definition what they would call a lesbian. And I am also what would be defined as a witch. That's right. Well, all of us are. Women with magic. That's what a witch is. It's funny how that word got demonized a lot. Yet witches typically are healers. Healers were witches. The cauldrons, the brew they were making was actually usually ale. It's funny how they made us. But you know what? Let's enjoy the scary part. Let's let their minds go a little bit with that one. Let it happen. We don't burn so easy. I know, right? Every time I love it when you guys are hitting these likes. I love it so much. You know, I actually love this. Like, we are magic, okay? And by definition, that would make you a witch. But we're magic. And male witches exist too. Like, it's not just for women. But here's the thing I'll say. I think men who are in their divine masculine understand something I understand as well. That this world needs healing. It needs healing. And when you deep dive into everything in our history, you can objectively say, what we've been doing is not working. And we can't keep trying new things on the hope that it's going to be better this one time. I, for one, am not here to make that gamble anymore. I'm just going to go ahead and assume it's going to be the same shit. So, I was told, and I have no problem sharing this, I was told that the rise of the divine feminine would be brought forth by a black woman. And this was long before any election stuff, before anyone says, I've been saying this for almost 2 years now. Which makes perfect sense. A return to the black woman, because that was where it started. Our DNA, as far back as we can trace it, goes to a black woman. Which means all of us incarnated here, our first memories of a mother, we looked up and saw a black woman. We looked up and saw a black woman. So this isn't a matter, just so we're clear, of DEI, which I don't even believe in, and I hate that shit. I hate that any time a minority gets anything that's very well deserved, it's just a token, yet we allow people very unqualified into positions because it's a status quo and we don't call it that. As you can clearly see, I myself am not a black woman. But they have more than earned my respect and trust. And I don't know who this woman is who will lead it, but I can feel her essence. I'll say that. I can feel it. It is very loving, very maternal, very intelligent. Very intelligent. I'm excited to meet her one day. And if anybody thinks for 1 second I won't bend a knee, you're wrong. I can look at this and feel intuitively it's correct while also looking at our history and seeing what didn't work. We need the matriarch, and women need to not be competitive about that. Everyone will have a seat at the table, that I understand, because it isn't our table, and she will understand that. She will know more than anyone what it feels like to be dismissed, unheard, targeted. And her compassion and maternal instinct and knowledge will know how to prevent it from happening to others. That is a gift that in many cases wouldn't be seen as being warranted, given the history. I could say that. The history, but shit. But her compassion is that strong that she does not seek revenge. Everyone will have a seat at the table. And she will be respected and loved. I can feel it. Because she will have genuine love for those that she looks out for. And that is not something we've ever felt in our governing bodies and our leaders. That they loved us and wanted us to be okay. So I'm excited for it. And I know it's right. History shows it's right. Instinct says it's right. Personal experience. Everything. I wasn't surprised when I heard that. So that feeling, that maternal feeling, a girl made a video about it. She said, what is it about when older black women call you baby? It just hits so hard. We all know that feeling. It doesn't matter what you are. And we haven't been able to put our finger on it. It's because the first time you looked up while incarnated on this earth, you saw a black woman. And you felt safe. It's time to trust that again. So when that day comes, when this divine one rises, we will never go back. And all of us will know that. Until then, remember your magic, my loves. Remember your fear is sacred and they're undeserving. You are a fucking Viking. You are a light of God. Divinely protected. Divinely protected. A force to be reckoned with. Those in power already know that. That's why they put so many things in place to keep the secret. Discover the secret. It's already known. It's our time. We hit 100K. Beautiful. I'm going to cap because that was perfect. I love you guys so much. Thank you for the 100K and all the gifts and listening and spending the night with me. I love you all so much. If you don't follow me, hit the follow. Stay strong. Stay fearless. Have a beautiful night. All of your stories are valid. All of your lives are worth fighting for. Take care.